Tyler Uremchuk and Frank Seravalli with you here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube to break down some breaking news. Frank, the New York Rangers, they're headline-making machines today. We'll talk about the Jacob Trouba trade in a bit, but they made some more noise agreeing to a long-term extension with their franchise goaltender, Igor Shesterkin, 8 years by $11.5 million, making him the highest-paid goalie in NHL history. And these are numbers that we had kind of heard for a little bit in connection to Shesterkin and the Rangers. So what were the final hurdles that they cleared in these negotiations?
Well, first off, I think it was Shesterkin going through the process of making sure that he wanted to remain a New York Ranger, especially after everything that's happened so far this season. When you heard him turn down 8 years times 11 million just before the season opened, I think a lot of people were viewing that as bad news bears for the Rangers moving forward because, hey, this is the franchise goalie, the guy that's covered up so many weaknesses and holes on this team and has been over relied upon for so long. What happens to the Rangers if that's not good enough? My belief, if you go back and rewind to our commentary then in late September, early October, it was the Rangers offer is always going to be the most difficult one to beat just by nature of the 8th year that they could offer. You're looking at upwards of $13 million to beat on a 7-year deal what the Rangers were offering on an 8-year deal. So the fact that they sort of slightly increased that number, added another $4 million to the total pot to bring it to a fresh $92 million total, that makes sense. And it kind of always seemed to be the logical landing spot for Shesterkin moving forward. That said, this is still a whole ton to pay for one goaltender for the next 8 years beyond this one. It's a significant commitment. And I think what it does, especially now that Jacob Trouba's contract is moved out for next season, which makes things a lot easier to grapple with for Chris Drury and the New York Rangers from a team building perspective is, yes, the cap is going to be increasing and in very short order, it's going to be 100 million or more, but it just changes the parameters of how you're going to navigate building your team, devoting so much to one guy in net.
They do still have a lot of work to do on the contract front, specifically on the blue line. But if you look at next season, if the cap is at around $92.5 million, even with this Shesterkin contract kicking in, they're going to have around $20 million to spend. So some flexibility gained by getting out from the entire Jacob Trouba contract. And in the aftermath of that trade, which saw him go to the Anaheim Ducks for a 4th-round pick in Urho Vakanainen, Frank, there was a lot of talk and people going, whoa, the Ducks ate this entire contract and the Rangers didn't have to give up anything. Are you joining that chorus? Was this deal, the Trouba one, a win for the Rangers?
It totally is a win. The fact that they were able to get off of the Trouba contract without they're actually getting something in return, a serviceable 6'7" defenseman in Urho Vakanainen plus the 4th-round pick and not having to retain any money. This was a big win for Chris Drury, and I think a bigger win for the Rangers as a whole is putting this Jacob Trouba saga behind them. This was one of the new Broadway plays in the drama department that probably shouldn't be there. When you have your captain, this has been lingering since the summer. And yes, this was a pain point for this team. I think it was something that, when listening to Peter Laviolette and also Chris Drury talk about where the Rangers go from here, this was something that they needed to tackle now, put it in their rearview mirror. And then the fact that they also couple it with this idea that Shesterkin is here now for the long haul. This is a big win for the New York Rangers overall on the day to get both those things squared away. 2 major question marks have now been answered, and the Rangers can get back to being or trying to be a winning hockey team. And Chris Drury now has an extra $8 million to spend on this year's salary cap, which is it starts to, allow your mind to think about the different possibilities that are in play to improve this Ranger team right here and right now.
$8.56 million in current cap space. According to Puckpedia, if they sat with this exact roster, I know they're probably going to have to call someone up, but it could accrue to as much as $27.1 million in deadline cap space. The Rangers have their 1st-round pick in each of the next 3 NHL drafts. So we talk about a couple of clear wins today for Chris Drury. What do you think the next win he could try to get is? What could they be really looking to do?
Well, I think now this allows for you the possibility to upgrade at a couple different positions instead of just one with the newfound cap space that you have. You know, the Rangers are going to be aggressive in trying to add to this team, but let's say you want to go out and get a forward. Now you can do that. If you want to spend $4 or $5 million on a defenseman, it could be even more than that, to your point, the later you get closer to the deadline. I don't think this cap space is going to sit around for long, as much as and as enticing as it might be for the Rangers to accrue that space. We know that they're trying to make things happen, and now they've got the flexibility to do so. And again, the volume and noise around this team, it's been sky high. It's been turned up to 11 for the last couple weeks since Chris Drury sent out that memo to all 31 teams after a 12-7-1 start for a team that had expectations to win the Stanley Cup this year. Yes, they faltered. Yes, they've struggled, but this should clear up a lot of that drama. And by the way, it should put everyone else in the NHL on notice. You see teams that are having to give up assets to trade players that have tough contracts. I mean, it wasn't just that Jacob Trouba was playing at $8 million this year. It's all of next year too that you have him on that cap hit. We've seen a lot of other teams trade away assets just to get off of these contracts. The Rangers have done it a couple times now, Barclay Goodrow being one last summer for a very minimal pain point. Now Jacob Trouba, and you actually get something in return. The fact that this team, with this expectations, with that record to start the year, and clearly some good talented pieces there, is deciding, hey, we've got to get on our horse and make something happen here, should be a message to everyone else. What about you, Nashville Predators, Ottawa Senators? Go through the list of teams around the NHL that have struggled to this point. If New York can do it, so can you.
Some big moves from the Big Apple, as Chris Drury was busy today, and the expectation, as you just said, is that he will continue to be busy going forward. Keep it locked on dailyfaceoff.com this weekend for all of the latest. And of course, join me and Frank every weekday, noon Eastern, right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.